What's going on, everyone? I got a cool little item to show you today. It's not an e-bike. We're not doing an e-bike today. It's another gadget that I think might actually solve a problem for you. So let me ask you this. Have you ever packed your cooler for a trip, or you go to pack it and you forgot to freeze ice packs the night before, so you got no way to keep stuff cold? Or you start your trip, you get to the hotel where you're staying, and they don't have a freezer, only a fridge. So now all the ice packs you brought, they're worthless the rest of the trip. So imagine there was something that could keep all your drinks and snacks and everything at a chilly 35 degrees the whole time. It's right here. You don't have to imagine. Litheli portable backpack fridge. It's a miniature refrigerator or freezer that runs off of battery pack or off of a 12-volt source, and it can keep stuff cold all the way down to -4 degrees Fahrenheit. And I'm sure you got a bunch of questions, so let me start answering them. All right, first question right off the bat. How much does this thing cost? Well, this one that came with 2 battery packs costs $269. I'll link it below. Now, how does this thing work? It's actually really simple. So you take a battery pack, and in this side pocket, there's a little like docking station thing for the battery to slide into. So you just put a battery down in there, see it kind of flash on, showing that you've got power to the unit. And then there's only 4 buttons here. You just hold the power button, and it shows you that right now it's at a current temperature of 73 degrees. Use the plus and minus to dial to whatever temperature you want. I always set it at 35, and it just kicked on. It's up and running now, cooling down to 35 degrees. So this side pouch has the receiver where the battery attaches, and then the other side of the pouch is just for the extra battery pack. And then the storage pouch on the other side is where I've been keeping the 12-volt power cable, because that's where the plug is to attach to 12-volt power. All right, next question. How long does it take to actually cool down to 35 degrees? Well, in my experience, about 15 minutes or maybe less. Here's a video of it cooling down from a starting temperature of 66 degrees. I grabbed it from our hotel room at the beach, and I set it outside on the balcony, and the outside temperature maybe about 80 degrees that morning. And I set it to cool down to 35 degrees. There's nothing in it yet. It's totally empty. It was a steady trek all the way down to 35 degrees. And it took just under 11 minutes to get there. All right, next important question. How long does one of these battery packs last? Well, this is 20 volt, 4 amp hour, it says. And in my experience, the length of time this lasts is highly dependent upon the temperature of the environment that the fridge is in. So here's a few real world examples of how long these battery packs last. The first trip I took with this fridge, I took it on a road trip from North Carolina to Pennsylvania, about a 10-hour trip. I had this sitting on the seat next to me in the truck. It was not plugged into the truck. It was running on battery power only. It was set to chill down to 35 degrees, and the battery pack lasted about 9 hours. It almost lasted the entire trip. But that's in an air-conditioned vehicle, and honestly, I really wasn't opening it that much, maybe a handful of times. So I wasn't letting a lot of the cold air out. Now, the next time we used this was on our beach trip. I took this fridge to the beach and set it down in the hot sand in direct sunlight, right? Sun blazing down on this. Is probably about 95 degrees that day. And the first battery pack only lasted about 2.5 hours before it was flashing the word low on the screen, telling me that the battery pack's getting low on power. So I swapped it out and I moved it into the shade underneath our canopy. So it wasn't in the direct sunlight anymore. We stayed about another 3 hours at the beach. And when we got back up to the hotel room, the second battery pack still had 3 bars on it. So moving it out of the direct sun into the shade was extremely helpful to battery life. And I took it to the beach again the next day. This time I kept it under the shade of the umbrella the entire time. We stayed there about 4 hours. When I got back up to the room, the battery pack was still showing that it had 1 bar remaining. So in my experience, the battery life is as little as 2.5 hours in the direct blazing hot sun, or as much as 9 hours in an air-conditioned vehicle. And each time I used this, I had it set to cool to 35 degrees. And I assume, of course, if you set it to cool even lower, you're going to use more power and deplete batteries faster. All right, so how much can this thing hold? Now, when you open the lid and look inside, it's not a square box in there. There's kind of a section that's carved out. Underneath there's going to be the fridge components. But really, that's probably roughly about the same volume that either ice or ice packs would have taken up anyway. In the lower section of the compartment, you can't fit regular size cans or bottles. You can't put 2 water bottles side by side or 2 regular cans side by side. They're just too wide. The only thing that fits side by side are really skinny cans like Red Bull cans. But just to give you an idea of what this thing can fit, I put in 11 water bottles, 16-ounce water bottles, 8 cans of seltzer, and 2 Red Bulls. Packed that all in there and was still able to close the lid no problem. So there's a good amount of room inside. It's not enormous though, but 2 adults, 1 kid, packing everything we needed in there. We used this all weekend long at the beach, at the pool, in the car, and I don't remember running into a scenario where we had to leave something out because there wasn't room. All right, so you already know how to run off of battery packs, but can you run it off your car? Yes, it has that 12-volt socket cord right here. So this plugs into the refrigerator inside this pocket, and then this plugs into your car, and you've got endless power. You don't have to worry about draining your battery packs, and this is an 8-foot long cord. You got plenty of cord to work with. And you can also plug this into a power station if you own a power station. All right, another important question. Is it actually realistic to wear this as a backpack? On this one, I'll say yes and no. The backpack straps attach really easily and they're very padded, so it's relatively comfortable when it's on. However, it is heavy. I think it's very feasible to put this on your back and walk it from your hotel to the beach or from your car into the park, short distances. But I wouldn't want to hike an extended amount of time with it on. I guess I just don't have the back for it. Maybe if you're an experienced hiker and you carry gear all the time, this is nothing for you, but I'm betting that the average Joe doesn't want to keep this on his back very long. The weight while empty is about 20, 21 pounds on my scale. And when I had this thing packed full of just drinks, I had it packed full of those 11 water bottles and 8 seltzers and Red Bulls. It was packed to the brim full of liquid. It weighed 43 pounds. But if you fill it with sandwiches, of course, it's going to be way lighter. But I would say it's not really any lighter than using a cooler with ice packs. All right, so having experienced this portable backpack fridge now for several trips, here's some things I think you need to know about it. Number one is it doesn't come with a cable to plug it into the wall. You get battery packs and you get the 12-volt cable, nothing that plugs into the wall. And I get it. It's meant to be used in places where you can't plug it into a wall. So I see the reasoning here. However, it would be nice just to have it plugged into the wall and cooling while you're packing other stuff and getting ready for the trip. And then as soon as you walk out the door, you just unplug it and run off a battery from there. The weight we already discussed a little bit. Depending on what you fill this with, it may or may not be too heavy to wear as a backpack. Now you also need to be aware of the vents that are on the front, and also it has a vent here on the back for the refrigeration components, right? They got to breathe. So you got to be careful how you set this thing down. You don't want to block those vents. So when I had it in the car, I actually turned it to the side so that the vent wasn't like pressed up against the seat. Now the battery packs just use a USB-C port to charge them back up. So a little USB-C cable like this. We've got these things everywhere for phones and tablets and whatnot. So it was really easy to get these things recharged. Now, having used this on multiple trips now, I don't know if I ever see us going back to using a cooler with ice packs. This is just way too convenient. I mean, when we had this in the car, we were just running off a battery pack. We didn't even plug it into the car. The way our car is set up in the front, that 12-volt socket we're using to charge our phones, and in the back, there's one in the back on the floor, but we have a camera plugged into that, the camera that faces down onto the baby's car seat. So I didn't really have an available 12-volt socket, but if you're doing a couple-hour road trip, that's nothing for this battery pack. So we didn't even plug it in. So I gotta say, great little gadget. We've been using it at the beach, the pool, and in the car, but I'm sure there's a million uses for this thing. I'll link it below if you wanna check it out a little bit further, and I hope you found this video helpful and informative, maybe at least entertaining. If you did, consider hitting subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.